Welcome back to C++ with Miyoshi. We're going to talk about loops today, more loops today, with for loops. And here we have that same for loop we started with last time, where we looked at printing out the numbers 1 through 10. Again, we have an int a, this time with a instead, and I have a for a. My initial condition is a is 1, then I'm going to loop as long as a is less than or equal to 10, and then I'm going to have a++ as my increment. And all I'm going to do is output these guys, and again, all that's going to do is output the numbers 1 through 10 with the ones digits lined up. That's what the 2i is for. And it's nice and simple. Now, normally when we get to, when we start, doing lots of coding, we start counting from zeros. And the reason why we do that is we want to save a couple of keystrokes. We'll save that less and we'll save the equal sign. We know we're going to count to 10. We have the same kind of thing. If we ignore that for a moment, we have a printf, we have a 2i. This time we're just going to output i+1, so we count from, instead of 0, we actually output the numbers 1 through 10. Again, this will do the same exact thing as this one. It just has save a couple of keystrokes, and we get used to counting from 0 through our number, where this number is the number 1 bigger in the case of an integer than the number we want to count to. So anyway, that's how we do that. Here's something new as well. Besides counting from 0, so another new thing is we have this little break thing. We've seen break before. Break has been used in our switch case, but break here in this case for a for loop or any kind of loop can get out of the loop. So if I have this guy here, I have for i is 0, i is less than 10, and then i++. It's going to count through here, so it's, when i is 0, it's going to say, oh no, i is now 3, so I'm going to output my 0, or I'll output my 1. And then come back up here, i is now 1, it's going to do the same thing. Nope, 1's not 3, so it's going to check, it's going to output 2. Let's come back to the top. Now i is 2, because I incremented that 1. 2 is less than 10 still, so I'll come down here. 2 is not equal to 3, so I'll come down here, I'll print out my 3, and then I'll come back to the top now. I is 3, 3 is indeed less than 10 still, but it's also equal to 3 that I want. So it's going to break out a loop. It has looped 3 times now, and it's going to come out of the loop. So that's what the break can do. Another neat thing we can do is we can actually change this guy to a continue. With a continue, what happens there with a for loop, it's going to do the same thing, but now when I have 0, it's going to print out my 0. When I have or print out my 1 rather. When I come back to the top, and now I increment it by 1. Now 1 is still less than 10, so now I'm going to look here. 1's not 3, so I'm going to do that. So now I'm going to print out my 2. Come back to the top. Increment, now 2i is 2. 2 is not 3, so our 2 is less than 10 still, so 2, but 2 is not 3, so I'm going to keep coming. So now I print out my 3, come back to the top, increment it by 1, now 2, the I is 3 instead. Check 3 is less than 10. Check to see if it's here. Yes, indeed it is. So what it's going to do is it's going to skip all this stuff and come back to the top of the loop and print and increment I. Now I is 4. 4 is less than 10. Come down here. So I'll print out my i+1 now is 5. So I'll have done all the things. I'll have 1, and I'll keep going through the loop. It'll only continue when I is 3. But I'll keep continuing through the loop, and so I'll have printed 1, 2, 3, skipped 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So that's a nice thing about, nice new thing. This continue works with loops. Again, all it does, it takes you to the top of the loop. And in the case of a for loop, it will increment before it checks your looping condition. Okay, here's a couple more for loops. These are a little bit different, but still the same. In this case, we have, I don't know if you remember, but I said that we can loop based on the number of times you want to go through a loop. And in this case, I know my loop, but based on some user input or something. And so I still have a known number of times I'm looping. And so I'll just print out the numbers again from my min to my max. Notice the max plus 1 because I want to include my max. Same kind of thing. Here I have some I start is 1, I end is 10, I increment is 3. I have a B as my looping guy, so I have my B as I start, B less than or equal to I end. I want to include my I end, and then I'm going to increase by increment instead. So this one's going to go 1. It's going to come back to the top, increment by 3, so it's going to have a 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 is less than 10. I'll print out the 1, then the 4, then the 7, and then the 10. last couple things here, these are kind of interesting ones. We have one that's fairly normal. It's got 2 initial conditions here and 2 increment or decrements there, separated by commas. And that's a pretty nice thing you can do. Here inside my looping condition, I still have to have a statement that evaluates the true. I can't have them separated by commas. It's still got to be a complete statement, evaluates the true or false. And inside here in my loop, I'm just going to output my 2 guys. One of them's going up and one of them's going down. Okay? So, interesting use of a for loop. The last one here is merely it's an infinite loop. I just have a for loop with my open parentheses and closed parentheses. Inside there, I'd have 2 semicolons, and that just again shows me that I have my initial value, my looping condition, and my increment or decrement. It's not there, and so none of them are there. So since none of them are there, it just acts like an infinite loop. Except for the fact in this particular one, I have an if statement that breaks out of there. But other than that, this is a interesting way to do an infinite loop. So there you have it, looping with for loops. Remember, for loops, normally you want to use them when you know how many times you're going to go through them. Even when you have the initial condition or my looping condition, even when it looks like I don't know them, I do know them somewhere up above here. I have the user set them, or something else sets the number of times I'm using loops. So, for loops, use them in good health, and tune in again next time for more C++ with Miyoshi.